Hi guys, welcome to our pallet liquidation sourcing mini course.
One of the most common questions we get on all of our pallet flipping videos is where can I find a pallet? Or I've gotten a pallet but I was scammed online. So today we're going to address all that of where you can find reputable places and buy good pallets that will make you a profit.
We're also going to share our pallet picking strategy with you and how we try to pick certain pallets so that we make sure we make a profit. We truly believe that pallet flipping is a great way for people to make extra money on the side. We think it's extremely possible for anyone to make about $1,000 extra a month in their spare time flipping pallets.
So real quick, the reason that we personally love pallets is because of the inventory. So it's very easy to go to one spot, spend money, and buy all your inventory without having to drive around to a bunch of different thrift stores or flea markets or Facebook Marketplace finds. It's all just right there for you, saving you a ton of time. You're also buying super low, so for pennies on the dollar for these items. That is the most important thing with reselling, is buying at the right price so that you can make a profit later.
So in this mini course, we're going to share a few different ways of how you can find pallet liquidators in your area. But just keep in mind that you may be required to drive a distance to go to some of these places. It's still an emerging industry, and so they're not on every street corner.
But even if you have to drive a little bit of a distance to find one of these pallet liquidators, that puts you at a strategic advantage back in your hometown for reselling, because there's not going to be as many of those items in your town selling if you're doing it locally. And you can also pick up a few pallets while you're there and kind of make your trip worthwhile.
We sell most of our pallet items on Facebook Marketplace because they tend to be larger, at least the pallets we pick. And so shipping them is pretty costly. So if we can sell them locally, we save on merchant commissions and also on shipping fees. So Facebook Marketplace is our primary selling place for pallets.
But that might be different for you if you live in a really small town, or if you're getting these small items that would do better on places like eBay, Mercari, Poshmark. So definitely be open to all different avenues of reselling. So one of the strategies that we use for finding pallet liquidators is through Facebook. So I'm going to pull up on my screen right here so you can see exactly what I do. So I'm going to go to my personal Facebook, and where it says search Facebook, I'm going to type in pallet liquidation, enter. Okay. Now, since Facebook knows that where I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, they are going to be recommending naturally places to me that are near me. So as you can see, there are some groups that pulled up right here.
And Facebook groups are what primarily a lot of these liquidators will use, so that they can keep their customer base updated on what types of pallets they're getting in, their inventory, and their hours and things like that. So the Facebook group is kind of like their little selling hub. So that's why going to Facebook is the best way to find these liquidators.
Rather than like a website that might not get updated very often, or you might not be able to contact them very easily. So yes, Facebook is a very easy way that they all tend to use, at least in our area, and I think nationwide. So as you can see, a lot pulled up just right here. This one says Pallet Plaza liquidation, GR 32nd Street, that's maybe 15 minutes from us, pallet liquidation. So these are all groups here, but I can also search by places, as you can see here in this corner, and then I can even go down to this location, and I can pick whatever location I want. So I'm from Grand Rapids, but if I wanted to search a different part of the state, I could do that. But I'll search for Grand Rapids here, and then these ones pulled up for places. So those are a couple different ways you can do it, but let's go back to these groups. So here I'm going to click on this one. It says Pallet Plaza liquidation right here. Okay, this has 4,000 members. So I'm going to have to do some research on these and just kind of watch the groups for a while. Like this one looks like they're not posting very often, so I don't know how many pallets they're getting in. The pallet place that we buy our pallets through in Grand Rapids is called GRPL Liquidations, the pallet spot. And as you can see, the Mitch, who owns this place, posts all the time. So he's constantly updating us, his customers, on what kind of pallets are coming in, when you can expect to see them, how much they cost. Someone will text him and be like, look, these are the items I got on my pallet yesterday, and he'll post that. So it's a good way to kind of educate yourself before buying and watching what people are posting, and also what they have for inventory and how much it costs.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of pallets you can buy, so it's good to familiarize yourself with the different terms like Amazon mediums or Amazon monsters, Target, general merchandise. There's all kinds of different categories that we'll talk about later, but just familiarizing yourself with the industry is very important before you start buying pallets and trying to resell them.
So I would definitely say to spend a good week or two really diving into the group or two that you're kind of watching to see when they're getting pallets in, how much they cost, and then try to find out what people are actually getting on these pallets. Another thing that we really look for in a pallet liquidation place is that they do not break down the pallets and then repackage them. Yep. Because we believe that when they do that, they're taking out the good stuff and then putting the lower dollar items back up for you. So we prefer that you find places that get them right off the truck and sell them right to the reseller.
Yep, and a lot of places you can just watch them, take them right off the truck. They don't touch them, they just set them in place and write a price on them.
Yep.
That's the best type of place to buy from because, as Sarah said, there's cherry picking a lot of times that happens, and you might get a pallet of garbage or macaroni and cheese, you never know. So
Easter eggs,
those are all things we've actually heard of before. Easter eggs, macaroni and cheese. So
yes,
number
2 pencils, someone got a pallet of us. So there is risk involved for sure.
So another great strategy to use to find liquidators if Facebook isn't really working that great for you is to go to a site called liquidationmap.com. And this is an amazing resource. It has a nationwide map of different liquidators in your area. So as you can see on liquidationmap.com, they're all over the country, and these places are more reputable, they're registered, and they're legit businesses. So if they're on this site, they're most likely not a scam person. So right here I clicked on, in Alabama, there's Pick a Pallet. So that sounds pretty good. If you live in Alabama, you might want to go check out Pick a Pallet. And then you can go and see they have their phone number, website, their Facebook, which is probably where you're going to want to go first, just so you can see their merchandise. This place looks like they have Milwaukee, Ryobi type pallets, which
that's a great one.
That looks pretty cool. So I would definitely, if I lived in Alabama, I would want to go check this place out. So definitely, again, look at liquidationmap.com. It's another resource you can use combined with the Facebook groups to find a reputable place. And again, you may have to drive a long distance to go to one of these places, but we think it's still worth it.
Yes. You can always rent a trailer or a truck so that you can get multiple pallets at once. One thing we haven't mentioned yet, but that we are super passionate about is do not buy a pallet online. That is just the best way to get scammed, is by ordering something online and hoping it comes to you. I just almost have never heard someone having a good experience by ordering something online and having it shipped to you. So we highly recommend that you really have to do it in person so that you can pick out your pallet and take it home that day so you don't get scammed.
Yep, because they're going to send you their least valuable pallet, probably the most damaged one, the one with the most garbage on it. They're going to cherry pick the best ones for themselves.
Or you'll never get a pallet.
Yes, that also happens.
That happens too, where you just don't get anything.
I mean, we get hundreds of comments on our YouTube videos about people getting scammed, ordering them online. So please, please, please do not do that.
Every good experience we've ever had with different pallet liquidation places, the owners have been very kind and helpful and excited to help you learn about pallet reselling. So I would definitely look for owners that are on your side.
And communities that are excited about that liquidator too. You can tell there's customers there either when you go or on the Facebook group, people commenting, asking questions. All are good signs.
Yep, look at reviews, that kind of thing. So definitely educate yourself for a few weeks on the specific pallet place that you're gonna pick to go pick out your pallet. Just research it and watch it, educate yourself like crazy on it before you actually go spend your $500 to $800 on a pallet.
So one other thing I want to mention about the whole pallet flipping industry is the idea of margin. So how pallet liquidators make their money is they buy by the truckload at a very low percentage of MSRP. So they're paying pennies on the dollar. They typically, from my research, I estimate that they pay between 12 and 18% of retail value by buying by the truckload. So they're probably paying between $300 and $500 a pallet for their merchandise. And then they are marking it up and selling it to you. So you then are buying, around 20 to 30% ideally retail value when you buy a pallet. So they're kind of doubling their money, and then you are going to try to double your money by buying a pallet. So with all that being said, you should never pay, in my opinion, over 30% retail value for a pallet. A lot of places will advertise, oh, you can get, this merchandise for half off. It's so great. Well, it's not so great because you're most likely, not all of it's going to work. So there's going to have some broken items, and then you're only going to be able to resell the items for around 50% retail value. So you're not going to make any money on a pallet that is priced 50% off retail.
So what that means is that if you have a pallet with an item worth $100 MSRP in a store like Target, you could expect to sell that item for around 50% retail value, so around $50. So if you're already paying $50 for that item on that pallet, there's no margin to be made there.
Most of the pallets that we come across in our area are between $500 and $700. So from our experience, if you're going to pay over $500 to $700 for a pallet, you're probably not going to make any money at all. You might even lose money because of that profit margin we've been talking about. So if you are all in on pallet flipping and you want to go big and buy an entire truckload so that you can get that low MSRP, contact us directly, and we have a connection with a broker who can get you really quality loads and help you get started in your liquidation business. So if there's not a lot of pallet liquidators in your area, starting your own pallet liquidation business may actually be a great business model as long as you have a place to store the pallets, something like a forklift to unload the pallets off the truck, and then if you can find customers to come buy your pallets, you got yourself a nice little business. So contact us if you're interested in getting some brokered truckloads.
So as we touched on a little bit, we like to expect to make about 40 to 50% retail from our items that we're selling. So let me give you a little example. Recently, we bought a pallet for $650 of mystery items that had a total MSRP of $3,829. So that sounds pretty good. So if we can expect to sell those items between 40 and 50% value, that would mean that on that particular pallet, we would expect a gross profit of between $1,500 and $2,000. You have to remember that you paid $650 for the pallet, so we would hope to net between $900 and $1,400. So that's a really great example of a good pallet, but I do want to put the warning in there that not all pallets are going to be huge money makers. There is a lot of risk involved. You could totally flop on a pallet and not even get your money back. That has happened to us maybe twice. Where we almost made our money back, but not even fully after all that work. And on that note, it is a lot of work. So there is a lot of time that goes into listing and communicating with people and shipping if you're going to be doing that, and packaging and that kind of thing. So it is definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme. We're not trying to sell that. Once in a while, you do get lucky with like a really awesome $2,000 item on a $400 pallet you bought, and that's great, and that does happen. But usually you're getting these items that you can maybe sell for $50 to $100, you know, and you have to sell 10 of those to make your money back. And then you start to make your profit, but that is a lot of your time invested. It's not something that you buy a pallet and suddenly you're making all this money. So definitely just have realistic expectations when you're going to buy these pallets, that it might take you a month to get your money back. And then it might take you another few weeks to make that extra $200 or $300. And then hopefully over time you sell your entire pallet, but it does take time and work. So just want to throw that in there.
So another thing you need to have figured out before you buy a pallet is actually having a sales plan. How are you going to sell the items on this pallet? And that depends on a lot of different things, like where do you live? Do you live in the country in the middle of nowhere, or do you live in a bigger city? Do you want people coming to your house? Are you okay with that, or would you rather ship all the items out? There's a lot of different ways to go about reselling pallets, and so you need to have that figured out before you buy a pallet. There's a lot of different ways that these companies will sort out their return merchandise. Some of them will just throw all these small little items in called a Gaylord, which is like a giant box. So you may have a Gaylord pallet of returned items that has 500 to 1,000 items in it. They're all going to be smaller and things like that. So that would be great for shipping on eBay, but maybe not so much for Facebook Marketplace because there's a lot more communication involved with people locally. But the great thing about the small items is that they can ship easily. So that might be a good strategy if you're looking to be an eBay seller.
Yes, or if you live in a smaller town that you don't have as many people to sell to locally. The good thing about living in a city or close to a city is that you have a lot bigger market for Facebook Marketplace. So it's easier to sell like big items if you live in a city.
We would say between 20 to 25% of the items on each pallet that we get are either broken or not sellable because it's missing parts or something like that. So,
or just a really kind of strange item that like on our last pallet, I got a nice bathrobe that's MSRP for like $70, but I have it listed for $15 and nobody wants it. Even though it's new, it's just like a really weird item to buy from someone who's not like Amazon. So there's items like that just don't sell well. Maybe eventually they will, but they definitely take either a lot of time or you just end up donating it. Another thing to mention, to go back to the time involved in pallet flipping, is that you do spend a lot of your time investigating each item to make sure that all the parts are there, that it works. If you aren't able to test the product for whatever reason, you have to put that disclaimer, or I like to put that disclaimer on like Facebook Marketplace by saying like, this is from a pallet, it looks new, but I'm really not sure. If you have any issues with it, you can return within 72 hours for a full refund. That's what I like to do because I want to keep people happy. I don't want anyone upset at me because they bought a broken product, because I wouldn't want to buy a broken product from someone.
Yeah, keep in mind you're starting a business by selling pallets, so you want to have a reputable name, you want to get good reviews,
Right.
and so by not offering refunds, you're kind of really shooting yourself in the foot with these used or returned items. So when we're going to pick out a pallet, we use a specific strategy every time to make sure that we can make a profit.
So what we do is we actually look at the outside of the pallet. You can't always see every item, but usually you can identify a few items by looking up the item number, or you'll actually see a picture of them. And then you look that up on Google or Amazon and find out the MSRP of those items. We always try to pick a pallet that 1 or 2 items will pay for our entire pallet. So we're looking for a few items that will make our money back quickly, and then everything else after that is pure profit.
Sometimes on our channel we'll do like more mystery box type pallets. Those are fun to watch, but not necessarily the best way to ensure that you make a profit. So we like using this strategy, especially if you're just starting out and learning about the pallet business.
Yeah, it's less risky. The mystery box items are really fun, but a lot of risk is involved. Sometimes people can score really good stuff on those, but it's not a guarantee. So we like to always recommend the more guaranteed route, where you find items that are going to pay for your whole pallet.
Like Sarah said, we try to find multiple higher ticketed items, not just one, because there is a chance that the item in that box is non-working or broken.
Or not even the actual item in the box.
Yeah, so 2 to maybe even 3 higher ticket items that you can see on the outside. That's the best way to ensure that you won't lose money.
Another question we get asked a lot is, do I need a pickup truck to buy a pallet? You actually don't. It certainly helps because they can use their forklift to just put it right in the back of your pickup truck, but we have seen people with SUVs or minivans or even small cars breaking down these pallets and kind of Tetrising them in their cars. Another option is usually at pallet liquidation places, they offer smaller like mini pallets, or even something called coffins that are like small boxes of like smaller items. So there's lots of options out there if you don't own a truck. We do see people renting U-Haul trucks all the time. I think you can do it for like 20 bucks a day or something.
Yeah, 30 I think, but still very cheap.
Yeah.
Definitely worth it if you're looking to get into this business and don't have a vehicle for it. Just keep in mind, if you're using a truck, that you want to get some good tie downs to strap down your pallet. I'll link my favorite ones below. So we found with flipping pallets that the best way to sell a lot of these items, especially the larger ones, is on Facebook Marketplace. You may be a little leery of that, not wanting people to come to your house. That's something we kind of learned to be comfortable with. We have Ring doorbells and security systems and things like that to make us feel a little bit safer. But what other options do they have if they...
So some people really don't like giving out their address, which is totally understandable. But what you could do is meet at a public place like a bank or a grocery store or a police station, things like that, and set up a time to meet with people. There is a chance that there could be no-shows and that you're kind of wasting your time. And if you have to meet people often, this is obviously taking up a lot of your time, where porch pickup, I don't even have to be there.
Porch pickup, if you're not familiar with that term, is when you would put the item on your front porch and someone will come pick up the item and either pay you via Venmo or put cash under the mat if you're comfortable with that. That way they can come and get the item if you're not home. And it's just overall a lot easier when you're dealing with Facebook Marketplace, because as Sarah mentioned, people are sometimes unreliable and don't show up at all, or on when they say they're going to. So
yes, and we have never had anyone steal from us or not pay us with porch pickup. I know a lot of people are concerned with that, but that has never happened to us so far. Another thing that I've seen people do is rent out a storage unit, and then you can store all of your items in there, and then that's your address you can give people. You still have to meet them there to obviously give them their item, but you could possibly make multiple appointments and do that all in one. So lots of different options if you don't want to do porch pickup. So that is everything that we know about sourcing pallets and how to find your pallet liquidator. We hope you guys found this information helpful. Let us know if you have any questions below, but we will see you guys next time.
Yep, good luck reselling.
Bye.
Bye.